Hello, everybody. I'm Don Counts. We're here at the Warrior Exhibit in Fayetteville, Tennessee, and Linda Williams is with us. And Linda, tell us who we have today.
Don, today we have Mr. Bill Daniels, and I think everybody in town will probably know him. He served in the Air Force, and he has a very interesting story to share.
Tell us your story.
I joined the Air Force and went to Chanute Air Base. I went in, and then they said, "Do you want to be a cook, or you want to be a policeman, or you want to be a jet engine mechanic?" And I said, "I'll take a mechanic." So I took the mechanic part, and I was in there a little over 6 years, and I stayed. I went all over the country, but I stayed 3 years. Well, like one day, being 3 years at Chanute Air Base in Murfreesboro. And but I flew every time a jet went up. Me or one of my mechanics had to be in the aircraft, and we flew all over the country. So we've been in. Well, I went to Formosa, and I stayed in Formosa about 6 months, and then I went from Formosa to Okinawa. From Okinawa, I went to Japan, and I stayed in Japan about a year and a half or two, I guess. And we went around to different places, but every time one of our jets went up, one of us mechanics had to be on the plane. And I flew all over this country. I've been to Alaska, then I went to Kentucky. We was up there, troop drop, equipment drop, stuff like that. And then we went to France, Bermuda, Azores, Keys. Then I went to Okinawa, Formosa, Japan, Hawaii, and back to the States. So I've been around the world pretty well.
Tell everybody why you had to be on the aircraft.
Well, me being a jet engine specialist, and I worked with on the jet engines, and I was in charge of a crew chief of about two other mechanics was with me, and but there had to be at least one of us, or either two of us, that go at one time. It all depends what we had to do. But if we had to like change an engine or something like that, the whole crew may go.
Made sure you do the job correctly.
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
how'd you learn to do that kind of work?
Well, we went to Chanute, Illinois. That's where I took my schooling and stuff. And when I went in, and they told me, said, "Well, you got your choices of either being food cook or a policeman or jet engine mechanic." And I said, "I'll take jet engine mechanic," because I didn't think I wanted to be a policeman or a cook either.
Bill, did you have any experience with mechanic work prior to that?
Yeah, I've been mechanicking when I came back here and got married and everything, we opened up a garage, and I worked with my daddy-in-law here for 3 or 4 years as a mechanic, and we done all kinds of work on my cars and stuff like that. But as long as I was in the service and stuff, I done it mainly on the aircrafts. And
was there much difference in between the two?
Quite a bit. When you go out and work on a jet, and you're about a little closer than me and you are, them things are well in at 100%. All you can hear is that whistle sound. And I think I kind of picked it up because every now and then I can be sitting at the house watching TV and I get in my ears.
Yeah.
Well, I went to VA up in Murfreesboro, and they gave me some hearing aids. And they said I was about 10% lost of hearing. And so I said, well, now, after I had them for a month or so, the lady called and checked on me, see how I was doing with them. And I said, I can't wear them. She said, why not? I said, well, for one reason, I still hear them jets every now and then taking off. And I said, then I hear like somebody crumbling the crackers or a crash or something. And I said, the static in my head, I couldn't stand it, both sounds. So I took them out, and just now and then, every then I hear that jet take off, because I've worked no further than the jet engine for me to run it 100%, and I guess that's where I lost my hearing part. But they said I was only about 10%, but I'm thinking I'm more than that, because I try to listen real close if somebody's saying something to me to where I want to make sure that I catch it. And I think that's what they were doing when they give me the hearing aids to start with. But I tried to listen real good to hear it, and then they said, well, you only got 10% hearing loss. And I said, okay, then, but I can't wear them. I haven't took them back yet, but I need to, I guess.
How long were you in the Air Force total?
I was in there a little over 6 years. I was in I was in Japan, and my mother and father had a real bad car wreck. 18-wheeler went over the front hood of their car and wrecked them, and so they called me back to the States, and I came back on R&R, and I was back, and I was staying with Mom and Pop because Pop was already crippled, and Mom, she wasn't in too good a shape either because she done most of the driving. So they lived in San Antonio, and when I got back, I was there about a week, I guess, and Mom said, we got company coming. And I said, what? We got company coming. He said, yeah, there's 5 gentlemen fixing to come talk to you. I said, talk to me for what? He said, well, they're going to get you out of the service. And I said, well, I don't really want to get out. I enjoyed what I was doing and everything. But the guy, before I left Japan to come back to the States, told me, he said, you going to Vietnam? I said, probably. And he said, well, you have to be awful careful there because he said snipers are picking them off left and right working on the engines on the aircraft. I said, well, I don't want to really go then if that's the case because I don't want to get picked off. But the way it worked out, these 5 guys that came in, it was Mama Spracher, I guess he was a lawyer or something. He talked like he was a lawyer. And then I had 3 other guys that was with them. And they talked to me about my service and everything, see how I was doing and everything, and said, do you think you need to be at home with your parents? And I said, well, I think they're getting around okay right now. I said, Pop's always been on a crutch and stuff, and he's my stepdad. And I said, Mom, she seemed like she's been getting around a little bit. So they said, where you live at? And I said, I live in Tennessee. They said, oh, you do? And I said, yes, I do. I said, are you married? And I said, I'm married. I had 2 kids, I think. And then he said, well, since they're doing so good, says you can take a week of relief and go home, but make sure you come back. And I said, okay. So meantime, while I was at home, they called me and said, report to Lackland Air Force Base. And I said, well, why am I going back to there for? And they said, well, said you could be getting out of the service as soon as you get back. So when I got back, they processed me in about 2 weeks. I was back out and going back home again. So I've been doing that ever since. So, and then I got back. We've had 4 kids now. We got 2 boys and 2 girls. And I was a golf pro for about 45 years. I'd done that for a while, and then I went back to mechanicing for a while, and then that didn't satisfy me either. So I went back to the country clubs again, and then I was a green superintendent for about 3 years. So I've been pretty well tied up in golf. And then when I got back here, the lady that was over the Special Olympics group came to me and said, Bill, says, I heard you was a golf pro. And I said, yes, ma'am. Said, would you mind helping me out with Special Olympics golf team? I said, well, sure, I'd be glad to. Well, I owned a cafe here in Fayetteville. I owned Bill's Cafe in Fayetteville. Had it for a little over 5 years. And while we was in it, I guess it was a couple of weeks later, she came in and she said, Bill, she said, I got a great idea. And I said, what kind of idea you got? She said, I think I'm going to take over the choir because I got about 15 girls and said I need to take them to different places for singing. And said, I just don't really have time for the golf. She said, I'm going to put you in charge of the golf. I said, wait a minute now. I said, I'd help you, not take over. So she told me, she said, no, you got it. And I said, well, and I've been doing that for 35 years now.
Wow.
So I'm still golfing.
Wow.
And I've enjoyed life pretty well, and me and the wife, we've been married 64 years and done real good with the kids, and they all grown up pretty good.
Where'd you grow up, and what led you into the military?
Well, when I was in I was in Corpus Christi at the time, and I went down to the restoration office, and I went in there, and I was working for a CC photo printing company back then. I was a delivery boy for photo prints and stuff. Well, I went into the Marines first, and I went into Marines, and I said, guy asked me, he said, what do you want to do? And I said, I guess I want to re-enlist. So he said, well, and he started explaining a bunch of stuff to me and everything about the Marines and how little gung-ho they were. And I said, wait a minute. I said, I'm going to go down the hallway a ways, and I'll be back in a minute. He said, all right. So I went down to the Air Force, and they talked to me, and it sounds better. So I said, well, I won't be out somewhere with a rifle or something like that, going in gung-ho, I said, I'd rather be something that would do with Air Force.
Sure.
So they enlisted me right then, and I went back down the hallway, and I told the man, I said, I've done enlisted. He said, no, we ain't signed the papers yet. I said, no, I done enlisted at the Air Force. He said, what? I said, yeah. I said, I'm sorry, but I said, I changed my mind about it and everything. Yeah. After they told me what all they was going to have to do, it kind of like it was gung-ho pretty good to me, and I just didn't care for that too much. So that's why I went back to the Air Force. And then
You think your military experience helped you in life?
I think it did. Yes, it helped me quite a bit because I've picked up more knowledge with being in the service than I would probably been out here on the street or somewhere. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Air Force. It's been really good educational for me because I took over as the jet engine mechanic, and I was over the shop and everything. And I had two boys working for me. Yeah. But every time they had a C-130 take up for a troop drop or whatever they was going to, they'd always call me and say, I need a mechanic on flight 11 or whatever it was, and so we'd grab our toolbox and head for the aircraft.
In case something goes wrong, they can pull over and
right.
work on it.
Right. Yep.
Would you recommend young people today to go in the service?
I would. It's a good education for anybody. If they want to get into the service, it'd be a good education for anybody.
I think so too.
I do. I think it is. I know when some of these kids coming out of high school now, they don't want to do nothing but lay around, eat, drink, smoke pot, and all that stuff. That's something they don't need to be doing, and they need to. I think a service would be a good education for a lot of them if they just take it and go with it. Absolutely. But that's their prerogative, I guess, to do what they want to do.
Right, right. But service will make a man out of you.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep, I think so. Yeah.
And it's good to hear somebody that enjoyed their time in the service.
Oh, I really enjoyed it. In fact, I didn't want to get out, but they told me I was going to Vietnam, and I said, no, I don't care to go there. But they said if I went back to Japan, then I'd be there for a few months, and then my orders would change, and I'd go to Vietnam. But yeah. I said, well, I'll just take a chance on it, And then I was planning on going back because my mom, she got her getting around pretty good. She wasn't crippled or nothing. And Pop, of course, he was crippled and on crutches. But after they got me out of the service, I said, well, they took care of their life, and I went and took care of mine and everything. And I worked at different jobs. I worked mechanic in the service station, garage, and even went to Parker Aircraft as a machinist. And I've done all of that too. And I've had a pretty good life.
From what you learned in the service.
I have a lot of learning in that service. Yeah. It sure did.
But you grew up in Texas, right?
Right.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I came out of Texas when I was, I believe 18. I just had turned 18. That's when I really enlisted. And then I went to Chanute, Illinois. And then that's when I went to my schooling. And they wanted to make me as a cook or an officer. Police officer, not officer. But and then the engine school. And I thought about it, and I've been working on all kinds of bicycles and everything else in my growing up. And I said, I believe I'd rather have the mechanicing deal. So they said, okay.
How'd you wind up here in Tennessee?
Well, that's kind of a funny idea. I was station up here at Chanute Air Force Base
Which is where?
in Murfreesboro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's up in Murfreesboro, and they closed that base down now. But when I was up there, I like one day being there for 3 years. But while I was there working on planes, I worked on the C-130s and the T-56 engines and stuff like that. And they tried me out on the helicopters, and I said, no, I don't want no helicopters because I don't trust them things going up everything. So I didn't take part of that part. But after we was there, I run into another buddy of mine from Texas. I said, you roller skate? He said, yeah, I roller skate. I said, well, I do too. I said, let's get something started. And he said, all right. So we got roller skates, and we went to up Nashville. We skated up there quite a bit and different places. I was pretty good active on roller skates also. I could spin, jump, flip ups, and all that stuff off
I've
the
seen
floor.
you do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was doing pretty good with that. And then I told this other buddy of mine down here, he was from Alabama. Well, see, we were running around different towns and putting on shows. I stopped somewhere over there right below Lewisburg, somewhere, it was a barn really with a roller skating in it. We skated, put on a show there, and we decided we want to leave there. There wasn't too many people there, so we decided to come on. Well, we was headed down to, I said we was going to Tullahoma. So when we went down south, we was going really towards Alabama. And I seen Luda roller rink sitting over there. So I said, hey, there's a no tent over there, roller skaters. And I said, they are packed. So he said, all right, let's go back and put a show on. I said, all right. So we turned around, went back over. We got out there on the skates, cutting up and doing fancy stuff with our feet and all that stuff. So Mr. Luder, he said, come over here a minute. So I said, okay. So I went over and I said, yes, sir. He said, y'all guys can skate. I said, yeah, well, we appreciate that. You know, we try to do our best. He said, if I clear the floor for about 20 or 30 minutes, he said, would you put on a little exhibition? I said, well, sure. So he pulled everybody off the floor, and we got out there cutting up and everything. And we always had a joke or two that we had, you know, in the show and everything. So I had this stuff in my pockets. So I went out there and I sat down on the floor, and I was rolling golf balls on the side and a tee over here and everything over here, you know. And my buddy partner going around skating, and he said, is that all you're going to do? I said, what else to do? You know, like that, because I was already been skating. So he said, well, he went over and put his arms around two girls. He said, I got me two girls. I said, you do? I said, well, I got a girlfriend too. And I kept looking around and everything. And it's part of my show. I just pulled up a pair of bloomer panties, and I said, I see my girl. And from then on, we just had a ball with it. And I started dating my wife, and I hitchhiked down here.
Oh.
So I'd hitchhike down here, and her and her sister a lot of time would run me back to the base, and then they would come back. So we got married, and we've been married 64 years.
Wow.
Very good.
And we got 4 kids.
Kids, he ran off the floor for y'all to put your exhibition on out
Yeah.
there, because I grew up out there.
Oh,
Yeah.
Luder
A lot
skating
of us
rink.
did, that's right.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a great place. Even
Well,
for
he
mine.
moved it.
Yeah.
He moved it from there up to where the
Right.
other building is. And of course, they moved it out to the other place out on the, and then they built that big place where the veterans office is and the elected office and all that stuff is. They put all that in there. So,
Very good.
but we've had a ball. I mean, we'd skating even in grand openings. We had service stations to call us, you know, and hey, would y'all put on an exhibition for 2 days? And I said, yeah. So we went down for 2 days. Some in Alabama, some up here in Tennessee. Just having grand openings and everything. So what we'd do is we'd skate across the road and we'd point like that to the gate, back over to the new station, you know, and everything. We got people coming into the station. And we'd carry bubble gum and candy and all that stuff in our baggy pockets, and kids come in, we'd give out bubble gum and all that stuff. They loved that more than anything, and watching us skate across the street and come back. Some of them told us that you're gonna get run over if you don't quit that.
Yeah, you've lived a full life.
Yes,
Oh,
he
I've
has.
had, and I'm 88 years old, and I've had a good life. Sure have.
We appreciate your
We
service.
sure do, and
Yeah.
we appreciate you coming to do this interview.
Oh, I loved it more than anything. In a way, I wished I could have stayed in for a little while longer, but things work out the way they do,
The
and
way they're meant to
yeah.
be.
Sure do.
Worked out well for you. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your service.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.